everyone. Obviously, we just met. This is DevOps and the Chocolate Factory. You probably have heard in the community this hot new concept that everyone needs to know about. So I'm really glad you're here today to learn about chocolate and its importance in the Drupal community. I think this is the future. I think we'll be able to do great things with chocolate. So I'm really happy for you that you're able to recognize that new technologies are really going to drive us forward. I just want to take a moment to introduce who you are. You are the stick figure that I drew on my computer while I was on the airplane, which is why I wasn't able to quite capture with a steady hand who you are. A little bit more about you, since you're probably wondering who you are. Well, you've been making chocolate for a while now. Maybe not for a while. Maybe you've been a hobbyist making chocolate. Maybe you've just mostly been sampling other people's chocolate, but you're thinking about maybe starting to make your own chocolate. It gets really expensive to buy other people's chocolate at a certain point. So you've decided you're going to go into the chocolate business some way or another. And your customers are small and manageable. You've been able to keep up with the chocolate demand. You feel like you're making an adequate amount of chocolate. The chocolate's been delicious. Everyone's really happy with your chocolate. You like to eat your own chocolate. There's lots of room over here, and it'll just be a little bit embarrassing if you want to walk across. Okay. I won't say anything more about you then. Delicious chocolate. And your customers also think that you make delicious chocolate, which is great when the opinions of you and your customers align. That's the sort of synergy that we want, you know. But you've maybe heard that DevOps is going to help you make better chocolate. That maybe DevOps is going to be the way for you to get bigger clients, to really make bigger batches, to get more chocolate out to the people, because the world can't have enough chocolate. You can't keep up with the demand. And I'm happy to tell you that through your networking here at MidCamp, you are about to land a big customer. Actually, this has happened in the past. I'm telling you, you already know that this has happened. This happened a little while ago. All right, so you landed a big customer, and they came to you and they said, I would like to buy 10,000 truffles. Previously, you'd only been making like 100 truffles at once, but they want 10,000 truffles in a week. So you get to work. Someone gave me access to a stock photo repository, so this is going to be exciting. So you get to work, and you deliver on time. Yay! That never happens, but you did it because you work through the night, you care about what you do. The customer, on the other hand, is not happy. So what did you do wrong? Womp womp. Well, you swear a lot, and then you evaluate. First of all, when they got the chocolate, it was melted. You had not foreseen that this customer lives in Miami and was selling it on the beach. You hadn't anticipated where this was going to be served. Also, it was not what they had expected. They had an idea of what a truffle is in their head, and you gave them what the truffle is in your head, and those two turned out not to be the same thing. Also, your product was inconsistent. They were 10,000 delicious truffles, but every one of them was different, and that's not going to scale. They don't want bespoke truffles. They want consistent, reliable truffles. So what did you do wrong? A lot. First of all, you didn't ensure that your chocolate would survive in the environment that it was supposed to live in. You didn't gather the requirements properly and make sure that what was in your head is what's in their head, and just do like mental map testing. And you didn't establish a consistent development chain. You didn't find a way to make 10,000 truffles the way that truffles are meant to be made over and over again. So your biggest mistake is really something just wrong with you as a person, just something really core and philosophical. And you believe in your heart of hearts that what you're doing is making chocolate. But in fact, you should be making a chocolate factory. Fortunately, this was cool. Like I was thinking about like the credits coming like after like an opening scene. And fortunately, I am smarter than you, obviously. So you're so lucky that I flew all the way from San Francisco to help sort you out. Yeah, thank you. I moved out to San Francisco 5 months ago, but I wouldn't leave you guys. It was great to land in a city like where all of the headlines are about how I'm ruining the city as a tech person coming from outside the city. So it's really good to see friendly faces of people I'm not displacing because I moved to your city. So I work for Pantheon now, which is really exciting opportunity for me. Pantheon is a platform as service and a software as service. So that means that they host and they manage, and I do QA for them now. And previously I had been deploying onto Pantheon in what I'm about to explain to you, but it's cool to be now, biting off a problem of writing tests and deployment for Python, Go, and Cassandra. So that's a really exciting opportunity for me. Here's my handle, Dev Mishev. I'm going to be citing things from my blog, craychee.io. I get like little, this is my Pebble Watch, and it vibrates when people tweet at me, and it just gives me like a positive reinforcement if that's something you want to throw in my general direction. You don't even have to say nice things, just, I don't know what's happening, it's exciting. Okay, really happy to be here today. This is what we're going to do. We're going to sort you out. I'm going to go through how to establish infrastructure to mimic production. My assumption here, I see a lot of familiar faces, and I've had a chance to talk to some people before I started my talk, so I know that this is a room full of really smart people with a lot of experiences, but this is an introduction, so my assumption here is that this is new to you, and some of it might be new to you, and some of it might not be new to you, but I'm going to talk about how to establish an environment that mimics production, and how to establish a development pipeline, how to gather and check against requirements, how to establish a deployment pipeline, and then we're going to go over the alternatives and the supplements for all of the above. If I'm not going fast enough for you, which is understandable, you can follow along on Heroku. So I've deployed this to Heroku. It's devops-and-chocolate.herokuapp.com if you wanted to follow along. Or after the presentation, if you want to take a look at this, you can click on all the hyperlinks and you can see all the things that I'm going to show you. So, you don't have to write anything down. You can draw pictures of my face though while we talk, but you can use that as a resource. Uh-oh, now I messed up my... Okay. That was almost a crisis, but we averted it. Okay, so let's talk about your problems again. You obviously are having problems avoiding melted chocolate. So how are we going to avoid melted chocolate, you deploying melted chocolate? There's really only one way to avoid melted chocolate, and that's by you have to talk to your customer, which is hard, and I try to avoid it too. But you have to actually ask questions of your customer. Uh-oh. Questions like, "Damn it, Kevin, where are you?" All right, exciting. You're gonna have to ask questions like, "Hey, where's your chocolate going to live?" And then you might get something back like, "Oh, it's going to live on Miami Beach." That is good information for a chocolate maker to know. You might also ask, so do you have control of your environment? Are we going to be able to do some climate control conditions? Are we going to be able to set up air conditioning for the chocolate on the beach so that we can make sure that it doesn't melt? Is it up to date? Is it up to standards? Do you have concerns about the safety of your chocolate? Chocolate's really popular. A lot of people want to, break in, get the chocolate. They want to change the chocolate recipe. I think this is just going to happen, right? Like this is just going to be this is a feature. This is a feature of my presentation. Bad chocolate. How fast do you need to render the chocolate? Like how quickly are they expecting to get the chocolate to the customers? These are the kinds of questions that you need to be asking up front, day one. Not that last 2-week sprint, that deployment sprint before you release your chocolate. Like, these are the questions that you ask before you make your chocolate. If they don't know the answers to those questions, if asking them things like, where is your chocolate going to live, solicits an answer like, I thought it was going to live in my stomach, then you can maybe offer them suggestions. If they've never thought about how quickly they want to render their chocolate, then maybe you need to get them to think about, if that's important to them. What is the speed at which you're expecting people to be served up chocolate? And if you don't know, you can Google that for them, because you know to ask the question. So you could Google something like, what is Pantheon's architecture, and get information. But the important thing is, once you've defined what environment their chocolate is going to be served at, then you need to make sure that you are working in conditions that mimic that environment. So that's mostly what I want to show you. Because we all agree it's definitely important to mimic the Miami Beach environment that you're going to be delivering your chocolate to. And that means that you're going to need to configure that environment. You need to have the ability to declare, I am in Miami Beach, and Miami Beach is this kind of hot, and is this kind of humid, and has this level of variability. You need to be able to assert that and be 100% certain that you are working in Miami Beach. I think the easiest way to do this, and I've written about this, is there's a great website called Ansible. That's ansible.com. And this is a kind of a point and click. If you've never used a virtual environment, you've never used Vagrant, you've never used Ansible, you can point and click and choose your base box. You can look at the kinds of web servers you might want. So this is Nginx or Apache, which begs the question, are you working, is there Nginx or Apache on the Miami Beach? You can maybe think about what version of PHP you're going to need to develop on. Developing on a PHP 5.4, notice 5.3 isn't even an option. And you really need to help your customers understand that PHP 5.3 is not even an option. So that's, if they want to develop on the sun, you can't do that. So just keep that in mind. 5.7 isn't ready yet, but we're all excited about that. Are you going to use Composer? What kind of database are you going to use? Anyway, I'm now showing you way too much of this website. But the idea is that you can sort of just point and click and press a button to generate and get a tarball. And after you press this big friendly button and you advance your slide, you get an Ansible directory. So you'll get a tarball that will give you an Ansible directory. And an Ansible is just YAML, which is yet another markup language, which is actually not a markup or a language, but we're all getting familiar with YAML, so we should all feel comfortable looking at a YAML file now. Take a look at the contents that it gives you, because all of those things that you pointed and clicked are now done for you. They've created a configurable environment for you. It's a really good way to learn Ansible, to know that you've clicked, I want 5.6, I want Nginx, I want MariaDB. I want Composer, click a button, see what that looks like, and that's a great way to learn. I think you will find that Ansible is much more. It's very friendly. It's a very easy on-ramp to infrastructure. Yeah, you've got a question.
So has the quality of the Ansible code that Ansible generates gotten better since the last time I looked at it, which was a year or two ago?
Oh, yes. So I should tell you, Ansible is an open source project, and when things aren't as good as you know that they could be, you should make a pull request to make it better. So it's an open GitHub repository and actually changes a lot. And that's important because of my next slide that I'm going to show you, but it has gotten a lot better, this open source project. This is a good way to start, but I'll give you some more supplemental information. So you'll get an Ansible directory. You'll also get a Vagrant file to make it so. So all Vagrant does is it is able to act on a virtual environment, like VirtualBox, like Docker. It's able to give instructions to a virtual environment to configure these things. So you have an Ansible directory that describes Miami. You have a virtual environment where you can build Miami, and then you have a Vagrant file that can give instructions to the environment on how to make or on how to execute Miami inside a VirtualBox. So it's a really good place to start. It's not going to be perfect. You have to make it a little bit more Drupal specific. So this is a blog I wrote. You can tell I'm a front-end developer with these really awesome font that I just chose to use.
Optimized?
Yeah. I give some instructions on how to specifically configure this for Drupal. It's not going to be you're not going to be able to press this button and be able to run Drupal on it. You have to make a few changes. You have to change some of the web root. You're going to have to add a few more packages to your PHP packages. But hopefully, this could be something that would give you a start. If you've never configured an environment before, if you don't have any experience with virtual machines or Vagrant, I hope that that this is a better on-ramp for you to be able to do that. Okay, some alternatives. Some alternatives. So I'm talking about Ansible. Again, it's YAML, not a markup or language, but it's very accessible. There's also Chef. I have a link to that here. Maybe you've heard of Chef. Chef is really popular. It's Ruby, it's recipes, it has a whole kitchen narrative. That would be an alternative. Puppet is another popular alternative that a lot of places are still using. But you can also just use Bash. You can just use a Bash script is better than nothing. So if that's what makes you feel comfortable and you want a script that will execute things, there is a long legacy of engineers writing Bash scripts to get things done. So I think it's better than nothing. When you're ready to go deeper, especially if you sort of feel comfortable with Ansible, again, I think Ansible is a good choice for the Drupal community, especially if you're just getting into this. YAML again is a good paradigm. Jeff Gerling wrote Ansible for DevOps. I think it's terrific. I've only read pieces of it, but I was getting frustrated with Ansible, and I was doing a lot of Chef is better than Ansible because XYZ, and Jeff has done a good job of helping me understand that I am the problem and not Ansible. So I'm still looking for I really like having sort of contrarian opinions about why I think Ansible sucks, or that's really exciting for me. But I haven't been able to find it yet because of Jeff. So take a look at his book. It's great. So if you're ready to care about infrastructure, I think Ansible is a good way to start. I think this book is really great. So you should also keep an eye on Docker. I know Dougie Fresh is doing a presentation this afternoon on Docker. I think Docker is really going to change the way anyone who works on the internet is deploying their things. I think we'll start to think about Drupal in terms of Docker and containers. I think it's something at least to keep an eye on, at least to be aware of. And I think Vagrant and VirtualBox might be the better on-ramp for you at this point, but Docker is something to pay attention to, and to go to sessions about Docker if this is something that you care about. I think there's some exciting stuff happening there. All right, on to your other problems. So problem number 2 is, how do you make consistent chocolate, the same kind of chocolate over and over again? The first thing you're going to need to do is figure out how you make chocolate, which is not something I think we as engineers spend enough time doing, is thinking about how we think about how we make things. We don't make it explicit of what steps are we taking to push things out there. And to start to write down, I clear caches, and then I revert features, and then I enable this, and then I disable that, and then, like, all of those steps that you make to make it done need to be made explicit. And you need at first an awareness, just starting to notice what you're doing to make things happen, and then you make that executable. So you take it out of your brain and you put it in a script for someone else to run so that they can execute you for you, depending on how well written it is. It could be either way. So in order to make your workflow executable and to think about your workflow, you're going to need to start to pay attention to your craft and to start to pay attention to what's important to you. So this is where my metaphor fell apart a little bit. Ingredients mean modules, guys. Okay. So what ingredients do I need? And what ingredients do you definitely not want? You want to keep as far away from your stuff as possible. Everyone has like a list of ingredients, like a do not touch. Like do not, like there's allergies, we can't, like they're lactose intolerant, like nuts will kill them. Like, you know, I've got a long list. I'm a really hypoallergenic person. Like it's a lot of, like when I start a project, it's a lot of don't do this stuff, keep that away, but definitely we want these other things. I just gave up at this point with my metaphor. I'm really sorry. Like, but then you have to think about like when are features reverted, and I'm going to state a really strong opinion here. You should revert all of your features on a deployment. Like that should be something you are capable of doing, and let's talk about that if that's something that you think should happen. But if you cannot run drush feature revert all, you have a deployment problem. So when you deliver chocolate to the Miami beach, you should be able to press factory reset and feel totally confident that that is the most delicious chocolate when it's at its factory reset. If you like do not feel confident that resetting everything to its factory, settings is like you don't know what's going to happen when you do that, you're in trouble. So you can get out of it. It's okay. There's like ways around it, and other people have been had that problem. I have that problem all the time, but you definitely need to revert features, and you need to ask yourself, when are you going to do that? Because Drupal doesn't make that super easy for you. You need to ask when you're going to clear caches, and you want to know, what do I need when I'm working in my test kitchen in Miami versus what do I need when I'm in Miami? So here's some good examples. When I'm working in my test kitchen, I will send mail differently than when I'm actually, in my chocolate shop, right? Like, I don't want to spam my customers. The engineers should not be sending, just checking if my chocolate's good. They should be sending that to all of the customers, and that's something you should think about. Like, did I get my email address correctly? Correct. There's other configurations. If they're using any sort of third parties, you don't want to be spamming any of their MailChimp, any of their third-party services. You want a test account. You will lose customer trust if you are using their production credentials on your test environment.
The best is charging customers in development.
Yeah, make sure you get a credit card from them to test with. Yeah, add that to your configuration files. Yeah. Test with this credit card. And then you should be asking, like, how am I going to manage the differences between the environments in my test kitchen versus the environments in the chocolate shop where this is going to live? And part of this is just establishing norms and practices. I think engineers know in their heart of hearts, that we all want to be really good at our jobs, and we all want to make sure that we make the best chocolate always, forever. Because I think engineers have a sort of a quiet hope that we've done our job when no one thinks about what we did, and that means you have to sort of just establish norms in your test kitchen. That you tell yourselves, if your work doesn't build itself, then it's not done. If someone else can't check out your repository and build chocolate the way that you had tasted the chocolate, it's not done yet. I have also written about this. So here I describe how to I think Bash, just like Ansible, I think is a good on-ramp. I think Bash has been for me the best on-ramp for understanding this. And I've written here about how to get your settings sorted, how to create a Bash script. If you've never created a Bash script before, how to just pipe drush commands through a Bash script, and how to have this execute with Vagrant. I wrote about it here in case you're getting stuck. I hope that this is, if you've never done this before, if you've never thought about your workflow, if you've never thought about how to put this into words, I really recommend that you start with Bash script. If you need help with this, I am very excited to help you. I think it's a good way to start thinking about these things. Most of us have used drush. Most of us have used the command line before. So Bash is just the command line and drush inside a script that you run. So I highly recommend it. This is a warning though about Bash scripts. There's this great site called Enterprise Shell Scripts that is a good reminder of all the things that you should be doing. Oh, I guess I can't take a look at it. It's good for LOLs. The warning here is that us engineers have delivered some really bad things to the world, and almost all of those are Bash scripts. So just take a look at it, and then you can have like a navel gazing, soul searching moment when you find yourself starting to do all of those things. There are some alternatives to doing a Bash script. Some of you might be relieved to know. Here are some of the most grunt and gulp. Like all the cool kids are doing it. So I admit that I'm not in love with JavaScript, but all the cool kids are doing it. So take a look at it. Makefile, tried and true. I mean, the things that some great software has been built and is still delivered with a Makefile. It's definitely worth at least understanding what a Makefile is. There are many, many, many more task runners. I think one that you should keep an eye on for is Robo, which is based as a PHP task runner. I think it's really interesting. It's being quickly adopted by a lot of people in the Drupal community as a task runner for Drupal. I know Greg Anderson, my colleague who maintains Drush, he's been really excited about it. He's doing a talk at DrupalCon about it. It's something to pay attention to. I haven't used it. Again, it's new, but it seems like exciting stuff, and it's compelling when used with Composer and Drush. All right, more problems. How do you ensure that you make what they want? How do you ensure that what's in your head is what's in their head? You need to learn how to listen to stories and not requirements. That if you listen to a requirement like, I want 10,000 truffles, that sounds like a requirement, but you need to hear their story about who are your customers and why who's buying these truffles from you, and what are their needs? What do they expect? So I'm one of your customers, and I walk into your shop. What do I want, and why do I want that, and what are you expecting? This is a growing opportunity for me and for all of the engineers. I think anyone who works in tech, this is something we're all working on, is being able to listen to stories and not just proper requirements. It means asking things like, who are you delivering your chocolate to, and why, and what are they expecting? This is how you hear things like, my client base is mostly lactose intolerant, and my client base really loves our caramels, and you can get a better sense of the human beings that you're building things for. You want to know their edge cases. You want to know what they're planning. Like what are people going to do with the chocolate? You assume they're going to eat it, but should you assume that they're going to eat it? In this day and age, people are doing all sorts of things with chocolate. I don't think we can assume that anymore. And what's achievable? What's the basic chocolate that would make them happy? There's a really Dan North who coined the term behavior-driven development. Just, another hip happening thing. He's active in the Ruby community. He wrote a pretty well-known article about what this is. It's called "What's in a Story," and it really became the genesis for. Let's see if this works. It really became the genesis for the Gherkin style. So something that you might all recognize. If I can. Oh no! It's giving things away. Shoot. Well, I won't be able to scroll. Take a look at this if you get a chance. Again, it's on the Heroku app, but it's an explanation for how we got to the Gherkin style. So the Gherkin style is you'll have a feature as a user. I want this so that I can have Y, and then you start creating scenarios. Given this, then when this happens, then I need this. So it describes the context, the action, and the expectation. This really was the genesis for it, and it's good to go back and to remember that the genesis of starting to write that way was trying to hear our customer stories and trying to hear what people were expecting. So some really good ideas in there. I think something that's really important to remember is that conversations are more important than the tools and processes that execute them. So I'm about to show you how to execute a story, how to get a story and then to assert that it's true. But I'd like to say that if all you did was write out that language and write out those stories, that is better. That is the better on-ramp than thinking about how to execute them. I'm going to show you Behat. Behat's really popular and a popular way to execute this. But and this is through my own experience. I've just come to realize that it's better to get those things written down than it is to think about executing them. And I find that as soon as you start using a tool like Behat, you start solving the things that Behat can do. You just start thinking about, well, Behat has all of these. And especially with the Behat Drupal extension, it has all of these great things that I can assert, and you start telling the story the way Behat wants you to tell the story, as opposed to the way the customer told you to tell the story. So it's more important that the customer is telling you the story. So here it is, Drupal Behat extension. This is an executable of the story. Maybe you've all heard of it. This is been really quickly embraced by the Drupal community. It's been really useful for me. Take a look at it, use it. I have a blog post about how to implement it, how to get going with it. Once you have a virtual environment, it's pretty easy to, only one person has to do the scouting mission, to figure out how to set up Phantom.js, to be able to run browser testing. Once one person sets this up, your whole team could be starting to execute stories this way. But again, I would add the caveat that it gets really exciting. You get a lot of things like out of the box, but make sure that you're actually, validating that things that should be happening are happening. So I'm really encouraging storytelling over just using Behat to start blanketing test coverage. I've also found it useful to make the distinction between testing and checking. I really believe that with Behat, you're checking. You're checking that you've met requirements. You're checking that things are done. I think that testing is always exploratory. I think when you're in the mindset of testing, you should be asking, what is possible? What are the edge cases? What will break? What are all of the parameters of my space? It should be exploratory. And to use Behat to do exploratory, to use stories to do exploratory testing, I think is a bad model. You should use other tools to do exploration, but you should use a tool like Behat to check that you've gotten done, to check that things are the way that you thought they would. I also find it useful to make that distinction when I think about whether or not I should keep I should keep something in the repository. Do I need to keep testing or do I need to keep checking? I can have really long tests because I'm trying to find all of the edge cases, but really I just need one check after I have done the exploratory work. So I don't know if that will be useful to you, but when I think about what kind of when I think of the problem space, it's useful for me to think of, does this need to be checked or tested? There are there are a ton of alternatives to Behat, but they're all in other languages. So if you want to use Ruby, there's Cucumber, and if you want to use Python, there's a ton of them. But you want to probably stick with PHP. There are some great supplements. Okay. There's Wraith. This was a project done by BBC. It's visual regression checking. And it's really worth checking out. I think that it's really compelling, especially for a brownfield project. I'm distinguishing between a brownfield project, which is a legacy project, it's already built, you're not starting from scratch, you're maintaining the site, as opposed to a greenfield project, which is, if you work for a consultancy and you're building Drupal from scratch, you're working on a greenfield project. But once you have a database that has to persist, once you're acting on a database, you're working on a brownfield project, and Wraith visual regression testing is really useful. It's also really useful when you're rolling out security deployments. To just security deployments security updates can take a long time if you're going to go and check your site after you've deployed a security release. You set up Wraith once, and security tests just happen so much faster. If you, and I hope you do, work for a company that cares about accessibility and WCAG 2.0 standards, Ally is a great tool. I call it A11Y so that you catch that that's 11. That's pretty great to set up as well. It warns you when you're using images as content, you're missing alts, and it can help you keep WCAG compliant. And if rendering chocolate is important to you and you've set some benchmarks about how fast things should be, sitespeed.io seems like a cool tool. I've never used it, but seems cool. Steve Hirsch, I know you give it a thumbs up, so a good way to set a benchmark and to have that run through your development process. If you want to go deeper, there's a this didn't render correctly. So this is from the Pragmatic bookshelf. There's Pragmatic Cucumber. So Ruby started this all. Cucumber is what Behat is the PHP version of Cucumber. So even though it's in Ruby, actually maybe especially because it's in Ruby, it's a really great guide to thinking about how you tell those stories, thinking about how you capture the givens and the whens and the thens. I found it only a couple months ago, and I'm already telling better stories and capturing requirements better. So when you're ready to communicate better with your clients, I highly recommend that book. All right, last problem, guys. You'll be relieved to know we're almost done with all of your problems. How do you consistently deploy your chocolate? The only way to consistently deploy your chocolate is if you build and control a deployment pipeline. Because we work in technology and because it's a house of cards and we're all scared and it's amazing that this thing stands that we call the internet, you're never going to be able to have 100% assurance, but the closest we have is creating a deployment pipeline. That's as close as we can get right now to being able to sleep at night. And if you're going to build, if you need a deployment pipeline, you're going to need a ship that's going to take you there. You're going to need to be able to move it from one place to another, and we have tools for that. I really like circleci, so there's a lot of this is continuous integration. This is the idea of moving fast, quick changes. I really like circleci. I have written about how to configure a deployment using circleci. And the important thing to think about here, if you've never used a tool, a continuous integration tool, first of all, it's not as scary as it might look. I found all of these things to be really intimidating at first, and I put it off way longer than I should, and it ended up being something that I could build pretty quickly. You're taking something that you were building in your own environment, your own little Miami Beach, in your own local environment. And instead of asking my colleague Steve Persh to go and tell me if Miami builds in his environment, and can you just check a few things, and here's a list of things that I wrote down, just sending Steve a pull request, or sending Steve a long email of, please can you assert that Miami Beach is true and that these things happen, I ask a robot in the sky to please make me look good for Steve. Please make this look awesome and tell me when it's not. And it's like my own little conscious, my Jiminy Cricket that will remind me when I'm not doing things the right way. So if this is vague, and it is vague, please read my blog posts on this. I go through in great detail of how to set up a circleci. I have a lot of examples. Give it a shot. It's free to try a lot of these sites. There's alternatives. Oh, I'll tell you about the alternatives after I give you more of my opinions. Ironically, my opinion is that you should have them. So every environment is different. What you want to do from circleci is you want to test that, first of all, you can build Miami again, and then you can deliver to Miami. So the specific example that my blog post is about is taking your local build, building it on circleci, and then deploying an artifact. So you've already built it. It is shipped, and you don't have to build it anywhere else. You built it, you tested it, then you take the artifact of that, and you gently lay it down onto Pantheon, the soft bed of cloud that is Pantheon, and you're done. So that's my opinion, and that's my deployment pipeline. I think that you have a local environment, you build in your contained local environment, you deploy it to the big robots in the sky, they build it, and they check it, and if they give it the thumbs up, they're as good as gods to us, so they can lay it on the pillowy cloud of Pantheon for you. But those are my opinions, and I'm as a sort of an on-ramp to caring about DevOps, it's important to form opinions. I think everyone should have strong opinions weakly held, of course, but form opinions and standardize on them, because it's really hard when you're changing your process with every environment. Form an opinion about how you want to do things and standardize on them. There's lots of places to standardize on, and I think that you should develop an opinion. You should pick a route. Anything. Having opinions is better than changing your mind all the time. It just takes a lot of time. So that's my opinion. You should have them. Here are some alternatives. All right, so I showed you circleci. Travis is really popular as well. And then there's Jenkins. So both Travis and circleci are public. Some institutions don't feel comfortable having their code in the sky with robots. So they want to have their own environment in the closet. Jenkins is a good roll your own. So it's a good solution for someone who has like maybe stricter security needs. But just saying, you don't have any excuse. If you want to go deeper, the seminal book on this is Continuous Delivery. First of all, your colleagues will think you're really smart if you just have it on your desk. So it's also something, it's heavy, you can really like throw it around. I've carried it into meetings before just to look like I'm ready for a fight. You know, you wanna like just when you get it, just start putting Post-it notes in it at different places, just like randomly, so that people are like, whoa, yeah. But maybe at some point you'll read sections of it. It reads really well as like in sections, and I have in all seriousness, I have picked it up, and I wouldn't believe me either, but I picked it up and I looked at the table of contents for my problem, and it's there. And if nothing else, it's like going to a religious event, and I feel, like my worldview is affirmed. So it's a really nice companion to have. I love this picture. So obviously everyone's going to be really happy with. Is she taking a selfie? Obviously, everyone's really happy with your chocolate, and they're like, "Why don't you just share that with the world?" They're like, "Look at this great chocolate that I got. It's so consistent, and I got it on Miami Beach, even though I'm not dressed appropriately for Miami Beach." I think everyone should learn from my mistakes. I feel really grateful to the Midwest community, and a lot of people here. There's a lot of like my former colleagues here who have taught me a ton, and I've stomped around and talked about this stuff for a long time, and then like I come, like every year I feel like I come back and I like apologize for what I said the year before. Here are some things that I have learned in my as I mature here. You should value conversations over rituals. I get scared too. I can't believe the house of cards that I'm building on this moving turtle that is the internet. And it feels like, it can feel tempting to be like, we need Behat. The Behat's going to save us. The Vagrant's going to save us. If we just do things this way, if we just follow these, if we just get the Travis or the circle, things are going to be better. And they're not going to save you. These rituals aren't going to save you. Just having a Jenkins isn't going to save you. If you do nothing else, learn how to be better at having conversations and asking questions. They're better than rituals. But you should do this stuff though. You should do that. You should do it. And you should think about solutions and not tools. So I've talked about tools, but mostly I'm just talking about problems, right? Like you have these problems. I've stated these 4 problems. I've suggested some solutions. Some of those solutions are in the form of tools, but you might need to find your own way to solve your problems. And I've often found myself, I think a lot of people have been in this position, where I have found a solution to my problem, and then I'm trying to solve the problem of that solution. And I'll spend like a lot of time trying to solve the problem of my solution, and then I realize that I'm trying to solve a problem that I created for myself because I thought that was going to solve the other problem. And then if I just take a step back and I think about what was my problem to begin with, suddenly the answer is a lot clearer. So if you need the Behat and then you're struggling with the Behat and the Behat's hard and you're working on the Behat and the context of the Behat and you're, I'm trying to assert this and it's not happening, think about why you needed the Behat to begin with. Why did you need to write these kinds of checks? I also think that any practice depends on its context. So my experience is working with universities, hospitals, sort of, biggish, companies, but working in a organic group context could be different. Working in commerce could be different. Your university has its own special circumstance. Remember that. Think about what's good for your organization. And Michelle is really growing up here because there are no such things as best practices, and it's just a lie. There's no people. There's a lot of presentations that I have given and I've gone to. I get really excited about best practices because I want to be the bestest. But it's such a lie. There's no such thing as best practices. There's only what you need to solve your problem. Think about those. All right. In closing, there's a really famous business saying that no one wants a 1/4 inch drill. What they want is a 1/4 inch hole. I get goosebumps when I hear that. I think that's I get like how that's the thing in business. They're like, think about what your customers want. Don't get so focused on this, like the drill. I'm kind of saying that like they really do want the drill. They want a way to make the same thing over and over again fast. They don't want a 1/4 inch hole. They want many holes. They want 10,000 holes like that. Like that's what they really want. This last slide, it's just keep making holes. I mixed my metaphors here, guys. I'm so sorry. Make chocolate factories. You are making drills. You are making factories. You're delivering to your client the means, the pipeline, the infrastructure, the executables of making chocolate over and over again. They're not asking you for a Drupal article. They're asking you for the means to create a Drupal article consistently and reliably. They're also not asking you for a website. They're asking you for the means to consistently and reliably and fastly create that website because it's changing all the time. So you need to create that pipeline for them, that mechanism for them. That's what they really want.